My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In the late 1980s, I was suffering from a back injury. A friend suggested I take yoga classes, and that marked the reopening of my spiritual path. I became an accidental yogi. My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Dr. Tracey Ulshafer, followed a similar path and became an accidental yogini, launching her career as a yoga teacher, healer, author, documentary filmmaker, international retreat leader, and Interfaith Doctor of Ministry. She's the founder of One Yoga and Wellness and the author of several books, including the award-winning novel The Accidental Yogini. Her website is oneyogacenter.net, and she joins me this week to share her path and just published new novel in the Accidental Yogini series, The Accidental Yogini, Padma. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. Tracey, welcome.
Hello, Victor. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. It is so nice to be together again. It was my pleasure to meet you when we were both pursuing our Doctor of Ministry degrees with the new seminary back in 2020, and we're associate ministers with the Interfaith Temple. Tracey, please share with our listeners your early path and how it evolved before yoga, massage, and healing became your calling.
Well, I can summarize it a little bit for you because I've written about it actually in length in another one of my co-authored books. But I worked in an office. I was a manager. I didn't really have a very, I would say, healthy life, body, mind, or spirit. And I actually had a compression fracture in my spine when I was a teenager, car accident. And I had chronic issues. And one day a friend of mine said, "Hey, would you like to try yoga? Maybe it'll help you." And I said, "Sure, I guess." I didn't really want to do it. I wasn't very open back then. I was, quite negative and just life was not working out for me in any way. And we went to yoga. I can't say that I enjoyed it. The first several times were not easy and I did not like the situation, but I kept going back, mostly because she promised we could go to dinner after. So it was more a social event for me. But what happened was at some point, my back stopped hurting. And then I for people that have been in kind of chronic pain, if they do try something healing, you get to a point where suddenly one day you realize you're not taking medication and you're feeling better, but you don't know exactly how that happened. And when I had that epiphany, my life started to change. And I began to dive more into all types of holistic practices. Eventually, I got out of my career, much to the chagrin of my grandmother and parents, because they couldn't understand why I was leaving a job that had benefits and what they perceived as security for a job doing massage therapy and teaching yoga, and eventually opening my own wellness center that I ran for 22 years in New Jersey, helping other people figure out how to reclaim their highest self. And I think that I always had an interest in that component. What is the highest self? Because as a child, I was not brought up in any religious background. My mother's mother was Jewish, so if you ask Jews, they'll say I'm Jewish. But I was baptized in a Methodist church, which was my father's upbringing, although he never went to church. So if you ask that side of the family, that's what I was. Um, but but they never sent us to church. We never did anything like that. So they always said, you'll figure it out when you get older. What is your belief or what is your belief system? And so what happened was just this organic, natural inquiry, I think, of who am I and what is, what is this life about? And then as I got into yoga and the spirituality around that practice developed for me, it went deeper. And so at some point, I decided I think I want to take this further. And I just found when I was looking into interfaith seminaries, the new seminary, and what really brought me in there was my connection through Swami Satchidananda, because I taught a lot of my teacher training with his materials and books. So I had that connection. And then, things blossomed from there.
You know something? I didn't realize some of the stuff that you just shared with us. I think you're my soul sister, and I'll tell you why.
Ah.
The synchronicities are unbelievable. My father was Jewish. My mother was raised Catholic. When she
Mm.
married my father, she converted to Judaism. I was raised as a not really religious Jew, more of a cultural Jew, spiritually cultural Jew. And when I was 8 weeks old, my mother took me to my Catholic aunt's house. And her aunt told her that she looked tired. She said, "Why don't you take a nap and we'll look after Victor?" And while she was napping, they surreptitiously got me out of the house. They took me to their church and they baptized me.
Wow.
Is that amazing or is that amazing? And then when I was in my late 30s, I was having back issues, and a friend suggested that I take yoga classes.
Wow.
And I found a wonderful yoga teacher who became wonderful friends with me. And this led to the reopening of my spiritual path and a series of amazing synchronicities. We've had very, very similar backgrounds.
Very similar. When we met at the new seminary, I felt a connection with you at once. So this is verifying that we've definitely walked the same path together in other lives, I believe.
And I didn't actually leave my day job because I had a family to support, but I had a combination of the industrial technology that was my day job, and then the spiritual work that ensued from my beginning with yoga and then leading to Reiki, and then ultimately leading to the new seminary the first time for me back in the
Yeah.
1990s. And a friend of mine who knew about my spiritual pursuits and also knew about my day job said, "How do you balance the fact that you have a day job in industrial technology and this other stuff that you do?" And without even thinking about it, I said, "The day job pays my salary. The other work pays my soulary." And I have this word soulary come out of me.
Mm.
And that really described what, I call it soulary, the compensation of spirit. And that's really what it is. And I think you have the same sense of that.
Yeah. And my first yoga teacher, I did my Reiki 1 and 2 with her as well. So she also, Reiki was another thing, another part of that came from yoga. But for a lot of people, I think a yoga practice or learning Reiki, those two things, I think, start their journey in opening up that realm to so many other things, spiritually and energetically. They're jumping off their launching points. But for me, yoga is also like my home base. I come back to it in different ways. I think I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I think part of my um, writing the book series that I'm working on, the Accidental Yogini, is to teach people the layers of yoga. And it's not just about bending and stretching your body. So, um, but it is my home base.
Absolutely. There is another synchronicity there. You had said you and your initial yoga teacher got involved with Reiki. That's what happened with me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think a common thing. Well, I think a lot of, yoga teachers, holistic practitioners, we I I do a lot of things. It's if you look at my resume, it's all kind of all over the place. But but I find that with a lot of holistic practitioners, once one avenue is open, we kind of look at all of them because we realize that there are a lot of different practical aspects of these things that can help people, and really, that's what we're in this business for. We've done things that have helped us, but we want to share them in helping other people. I was that regular person. I'm still a regular person, by the way, but that worked in that worked in corporate America, that felt kind of empty in their life. And I see it in a lot of friends and family. And I try to, if they're open to it, I try to show them, well, this worked for me, or maybe you can think about that, or, and have those conversations. Because if they helped me, and I was really not a very healthy person in all aspects when I was younger.
Mm.
If it helped me, I think it can help anybody.
Absolutely. It's interesting. So when I first started taking yoga, the teacher and I became very good friends. And she said, your voice is perfect for facilitating meditation. Would you lead meditation? I said, absolutely. And I started leading the class meditations. And then we started going on a series of retreats to a Zendo up in Livingston Manor, New York. And at one of those retreats, someone mentioned the word Reiki, which was something I had never consciously heard before.
Mm-hmm.
But it attracted me. And like I said, my teacher and then another friend of ours. And it was something at that time that we said we'd look into the following year. But 2 weeks later, we were in our first Reiki class together.
That's how it happens, Victor. I did maybe a little over a year long massage therapy program. And I was in that massage therapy program when my yoga teacher decided to do a yoga teacher training. I had 1 week in between 2 year-long courses. I just dove one into another, but it felt right.
And the reason that I went to the new seminary, this is another synchronicity, is that in those days, if you wanted to go into a hospital and do laying on of hands,
Mm,
you had to either be a licensed massage therapist, which I didn't have time for. You couldn't take off 2 years from work and go to
mhm,
massage school, or ordained in a faith where laying on of hands was one of the sacraments.
right.
And through this wonderful relationship that ensued for me back then, I learned about the new seminary and I attended, and that was life-changing in so many ways. Did you find that the same?
Yes. In fact, one of the reasons that I decided to go to the new seminary was because I was considering closing my wellness center to be a hospital chaplain. I wanted to go into hospital chaplaincy.
Mm,
And then the pandemic happened.
yeah, yeah.
So my mind changed a little bit around that, or avenues changed at
And
that
I
time.
think, and I think you know this. I also met my wife, Lori Sue, through the new seminary. She was in the class after my class,
Yeah,
and she and I became chaplains for the Red Cross after 9/11, among other things. So, you go in with one reason, but spirit and energy has another reason in mind for all of us.
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. You are a prolific author.
Uh,
Before we discuss your just published new additions in the Accidental Yogini series, let's talk a little bit about your earlier books, including the mononyms, the single word titled Wolf, Butterfly, and Raven.
hmm. Well, I guess back then when I published, and I can't even remember what year, I'd have to go look that up. But let's throw out 2010 as a possible time frame. Um, I just had learned about the idea of self-publishing. So when I was young, I always wrote. I was the kid that ran home from school, wrote little plays that my friends and I would act out in school at recess the next day. So I was always writing. I had many beautiful teachers in school that encouraged me to write. So it was always a part of what I was. Even when I was in corporate America, I wrote articles or stories for the different magazines or publications, newsletters that we had. So it's always been a part of who I am. And I really feel that one of my archetypes is the storyteller. It really speaks to me. So when I found out about this that you could actually self-publish, I thought, oh, this is something I could just do, and I don't have to go through the process of trying to find a literary agent, which at the time was really a daunting task. So I said, I'm just going to do this. And I decided to write a book. I have to be honest, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to write. I really, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word channel. I just open myself up and I start writing and I let myself channel whatever needs to come through. So what I wound up writing was Butterfly, which was a book about roughly my life as a child growing up in a particular city that I grew up in New Jersey. And the story is pretty much things that happened to me around the time that I was 13. And so, all my childhood friends got excited that I was writing this book, and the different characters in there that represent them. So it was kind of a fun thing. And what happened was the subsequent two books of Wolf and Raven, it's the same heroine, but different stages of her life and representing somewhat of my life, but not in totality. So I started to kind of get a little bit more creative in those books and stretch myself, because in Wolf, the character's in her, I think, 30s, and then in Raven, she's older than I am now, and she is a spiritual person, similar to myself, but she's saying goodbye to a good friend of hers that just recently passed and kind of reviewing their spiritual journey together. So it's, sprinkled with parts of my life, but I started to kind of play more in the fictional realm, and that really just broke me open to writing other books like the Accidental Yogini.
Listen, I think we have to have a DNA test because I too, when I was in school as a kid, was a prolific writer. And like you, I channeled it.
Mm.
I had channeled poetry. I had channeled stories. I was a journalist also. I was a journalist in junior high school in the junior high school newspaper. But again, this series of commonalities, I think you and I are definitely brother and sister. There's no question
Oh,
about it.
yeah, we're gonna have to talk about it even more, I think.
Absolutely. You were also a contributor to the best-selling Learning the Language of Soul. How did that come about, and what did you share?
Yeah, love initiation, learning the language of soul. I That was an interesting thing. I I travel the world. I not so much recently, but I found myself over the years drawn to power places along the planet, and ancient sites, and just noticing that when I traveled, I wanted to go to these ancient temples and these power places on the planet. So Egypt, of course, it's always on the list. And since I was a young kid, Egypt has always been on the list. So I was looking into going to Egypt, and I had told someone that I know that I was taking his trip to Egypt. And then the Facebook gods somehow connected me with Julianne Santini. And normally I don't accept friend requests from people that I don't know, but something about her, I must have just said yes. And we were Facebook friends, and I saw her, her trip to Egypt come up on Facebook. And I went, oh, what's this? And it turned out to be a group of healers that they were taking on this trip and also writing a book. And I thought, what? That's me. I write. So I shifted gears from nearly sending a deposit to this other person to going on this trip with Julianne and her partner John, and it was beyond phenomenal. And Victor, this is probably another podcast, because we could talk about this infinitely. What happened on this trip and some of the things that transpired. But the thing that came out of it was this beautiful book that each one of the people on the trip who were healers, somebody is a acupuncturist, and somebody does Reiki, or all these different healing modalities. A lot of us, a mix of healing modalities, and so we wrote what was our love initiation to learning the language of our soul, and then a little practice that goes along with it. And my chapter just happens to be about these earth chakras, these power places on the planet, and what can happen when we go there and have a reciprocal healing event where we're receiving from the planet, but we're also giving to the planet.
Beautiful. My guest, Reverend Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. When we come back, we're going to be talking about her Accidental Yogini series. Tracey, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and your amazing work.
You can check me out on my website, which is oneyogacenter.net, and that's all spelled out. And the books are available on Amazon.
And tell us about the signing that you have coming up.
I have a book signing in New Jersey. If you're in the tri-state area, there's a beautiful place, Black Forest Acres in Hamilton Square, right in the center of New Jersey, on the 22nd of December from 12 to 2. I will have books for sale, and I'll be signing pre-purchased copies.
Wonderful. And we'll be back with more of Tracey after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hey, Dad. Your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, my dear friend, Reverend Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. We're going to be talking about her books, the Accidental Yogini series. Tracey, I suspect that the Accidental Yogini series, even though written as novels, fictionally address your personal yogic path. Am I on to something?
In this case, I'll say that in the first book that I wrote, which is now retitled The Accidental Yogini Kristen, there is a similarity in that she works in an office and she has some issues with her body. She also winds up with somebody that has a couple of children. So other than that, those are parts of my life that are true to that story. Other than that, I took a lot of creative liberty. With Padma, it is 100% creative liberty. It's not my story. I wanted to really stretch myself and use a combination of some of my students that I've met over the years and their journeys through yoga, or some of the things that maybe the qualities of them that I witnessed, or parts of their journey that I was able to be a part of. But then I also stretched it even further into a creative aspect of the story, where it's not based on, like, there's some things in Padma total from my imagination. So yeah, I wouldn't say pick up Padma and see much of me. But I have had many people tell me with the first book that when they read it, they thought I was writing about them. And that's what I want people to see. I want people to see themselves in these stories.
Absolutely. What inspired you to write the Accidental Yogini, the original one?
I think at that time, I just decided to write again. Running a wellness center is a 24/7 full-time commitment of your life. Even when you're on vacation or out of the country, you are, you're in it. So I needed, and that's a very creative thing, teaching yoga and the way that I did things is a very creative aspect, but I needed the writing aspect. I needed that for me because it's so much a part of my soul. So I just wanted to write. And again, in the channeling process of just being open, this story started to come out. And I just started to write it. So it came out. I had a wellness center, so I was able to sort of market it to my students and clients and people that would appreciate the story. And I never thought back then that I would write another one or that it would be a series. But as the world changes, things evolve. And what happened was I started to notice all these streaming channels, right? Netflix, Hulu, all these streaming channels, and how you could get into a series of something and watch it and just want to binge it. And I started thinking, you know what? I think there's other Accidental Yogini series, and I could not just see them as a book, but I could see them as movies or TV shows that, a different heroine each season. So I decided to start doing a series. And so I'm putting it out there into the universe that somebody that is involved with one of these channels finds them and wants to have that conversation.
As we said, your latest iterations are Padma and the new release of Kristen. Let's start with Padma, her path and how yoga changed her life.
Padma is a young mom. Well, in the beginning of the book, she's getting married. She is an Indian American girl. She is all about the life plan that she and her husband have. And immediately in chapter 2, she's a mom with 2 young kids, and life has changed in a way that she didn't foresee. And she's a little bit stressed. And what happens in the book is that somebody that she meets starts talking about his wife doing prenatal yoga and postnatal yoga and how it's helped her. And she asks her mother, and her mother is pretty rejective of the idea of yoga. And it takes her into this inquiry about, well, why does mom not want me to look into yoga? There's a family secret there that's revealed about yoga. And so through that process, she gets into this practice, and she goes actually back to the motherland, back to India, and travels through India with her yoga teacher on a retreat, on a spiritual retreat, where she's learning about the different types of yoga: hatha yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, and Raja yoga. And she's understanding that that the practice of yoga is so deep and so profound. And what transpires while in India is something that changes her life, which was pretty good, actually. Other than the stress of being a mom, her life was beautiful. But what happens is she finds a life purpose or a life calling that she winds up coming home with. So it gives her dharma and her life path. So that's the synopsis of that.
And she also learns the meaning of her name.
Yes, that's a big part of her story. Her yoga teacher says, I see you coming on the trip, and I see you learning or discovering the true nature of your name, or the depth of your name. I can't remember how I wrote it. And she does.
Wonderful. How does Kristen's journey differ from Padma's?
Kristen's a single girl. As I had mentioned earlier, she works in corporate America, and she has physical issues with her body. So in the story for Kristen, it's somebody that gets involved with yoga due to a physical problem. In Padma, she gets involved more from stress and mental issues. So I kind of dive into the practices from different aspects, so that people can see why you might start a yoga practice. Not just because I think a lot of people erroneously still feel, even today, that yoga is for people that are flexible. And actually, yoga is what inflexible people need to do. And that's not just physically, that's mentally. If your mind is not flexible, you go into a yoga practice to become more flexible physically, mentally. And once you do that, then it opens up to the spiritual realm. And so I wanted people to see that. And I already know what the next story is going to be, the next Accidental Yogini. And it's another layer.
Wonderful. Wonderful. When do you anticipate publishing?
Well, I haven't, it's formulating right now. This is the first, actually, Victor, this is the first time something's formulating and not just I'm sitting down open writing. So I feel pretty confident. I know what this story is going to be about. And I will share with everybody. It's most likely the story of somebody who learns yoga in a rehabilitation center for drug and alcohol addiction.
Wonderful. And when are you going to have the screenplays ready to pitch to Netflix?
I can have them ready in a minute. I actually was a radio, TV, film major in college. So if somebody wants them, they can happen probably overnight. So that's not a big deal. I could be ready. Yeah. So if you're listening, Netflix or whoever, I'm ready.
Wonderful. Both Padma and Kristen reflect discovery and healing journeys for women. This message is so important, especially after the challenges the current political climate has created for women. What message would you offer concerning this?
You know, I was in Peru in 2019 with a group of women, Victor, and we were at the Sacred Moon Temple. And what came to me then was our time for playing small on the planet is over. We are the ones that will heal the planet, and we need to step up, and we need to step into our true purposes and roles. And I've shared that with many women since. And you know, this goes back very far. Women on the planet took a back seat, and many of the women on the planet are still doing that. And in order for our planet to really truly heal, I believe in my belief system that we are leaving an era of duality that the yogis call Kali Yuga. I believe we're leaving that. I believe we're coming into an era of oneness. And so it's not about women or the divine feminine overshadowing men or the divine masculine. It's about marriage or a union of the two that integrate into unity consciousness. And so until women wake up and come to that point, enough women, we're not going to find that integration. I think, if anything, some of the current situations have ignited or sparked more women to awaken. And so I see that actually as a positive thing.
So may it be. So may it be. The series also looks at second chapters, significant life changes that both women and men experience as they reach their late 30s and early 40s. How should we approach and embrace those changes?
I would say just be open, right? Openness. The only constant is change, right? That's the only thing. And energy is always changing and shifting into different forms. So I think we owe it to ourselves to just be open.
And how do we recognize those second chapters when they're presented to us?
One of the things I've realized in my life, if I'm not feeling inspired, if I'm not feeling flow, if I feel stagnated, that something needs to shift and change. So I would say if you're feeling that way in your life, if you're feeling stuck, stagnated, uninspired, you need to find a way to be open to shifting into this next stage of your life. And there's many methods of that. So I don't want to, limit somebody's ideas of that. Yoga could be something if you don't have a yoga practice, but there's many ways to do that.
And for both of us personally, it involved spiritual acknowledgement and the growth of spirit, which is a very special and very beautiful thing. What would you like readers to take away from the Accidental Yogini series?
I would like people, I would really love people who don't practice yoga to read the book and start to open their mind, their perception of what the practice is or could be for them. I'd like people to take away from the books that your journey is ongoing and that the possibilities of opening to your highest potential are always there. So it's about you putting yourself in a position where you can access that.
Absolutely. Tell us about One Yoga Center and what you offer there.
The brick and mortar of what was One Yoga Center closed in 2022. It was a yoga and wellness center. So what I've said is that in the closing of that brick and mortar, it's allowed me to offer things to the greater community, people outside of the area. So I do a lot of, well, I did a lot of retreats. My mother has an illness. I'm focusing on taking care of her right now, but a lot of healing retreats to these power places on the planet. And then I also offer different trainings and things locally still under the One Yoga Center. I call it One Yoga and Wellness now. I kind of lopped off center and put in wellness. So it covers more of the expansion of what I do locally and then globally.
Do you also train yoga teachers?
I had a yoga school from 2003 until 2022. I still can train people. However, I stopped paying the exorbitant dues that were required from the National Yoga Alliance. So I don't have a school that's accredited with Yoga Alliance, but I can still train.
My guest, Reverend Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. We're talking about her Accidental Yogini series. We'll be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, my dear friend, Reverend Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. We're talking about her Accidental Yogini series and all of the wonderful work that she does. One of the practices that you employ is Thai yoga and Thai yoga healing. How does Thai yoga differ from Hatha yoga and other forms?
Oh, that's a deep question. We could go a couple different places with that, but I'm gonna hit this direction. The Thai yoga that I offer is Thai yoga body work, which ties in with my massage therapy and my energy healing work. So I've traveled to Thailand, I think 8 or 9 times. I love Thailand. My father was stationed in Thailand during the Vietnam War, and he always talked about Thailand. We had a teak Buddha in our house. So in 2009, I took him back and had some of these amazing Thai body work sessions up in Chiang Mai. These people are masters of working on the body, and in Thailand, it's a regular preventative measure, right? They get these with regularity to keep themselves body, the physical body in check. We go there after a long plane ride. We're a big old knotted mess, and then they have to beat it out of us in these sessions. But I went to Thailand. I fell in love with Thai body work. I was already a massage therapist, and I then came home. I wound up taking a Thai bodywork training. So now I conduct a Thai yoga bodywork training for other therapists that want to. It's accredited through the national board if you're a massage therapist, but also through Yoga Alliance, you can get credits if you're for continuing education. So I offer those to private clients, but I also offer the trainings to people in an authentic Thai yoga bodywork floor mat session.
And you said they beat the stuff out of you with it. It's not really being beaten, right?
Well, they're pretty tough. I'm telling you, these Thai women, they're tiny, and I'm tiny too. And the strength that they have, and it's just that they just know how to move the energy. But when you have such knots and your connective tissue and your muscles are just so chronically tight, it does hurt initially when they first do it. Now, I've kind of stripped mine down for clients to be a more Americanized version, so I don't go in and beat people up. But you could expect that in Thailand. It feels pretty hard. But after maybe the first or second session, it doesn't hurt as much because you're releasing. The stuff is releasing and it's leaving the body.
Tell us about quantum healing. What is it and how is it practiced?
Well, quantum refers to really anything in the energy field, right? In the quantum field. So not just in the here and now, but the past through ancestry, bloodline, and the future. So when I got my Reiki master, what I felt was through my own shamanic practices that I had done for so long, 30 years or more, I realized that what I wanted to offer people was more than the Reiki hand positions or the Reiki symbols and what that had. I wanted to incorporate light language, star language. I wanted to incorporate not just the 7 chakras, but the chakras beyond the body. I work with a 12 chakra system, which implements the Earth Star for bloodline and ancestral healing, and also the upper chakras 8, 9, 11 above the head, that are karmic energy, things that we incarnate from past lives and things like that. So my quantum healing is just that. It's anything in the quantum field that needs healing. And so I implement various different strategies, which could be hands-on things from my integrated energy massage therapy to Reiki to shamanic practices that I've learned in my travels all over the world.
And you had mentioned making several trips to Thailand. Your path has led you to leading retreats around the world. Please tell us about some of the magical destinations that you've taken seekers and what the experiences were like.
Well, I have taken people to Thailand a few times, and to me, that's the land of joy. It's really joy and pleasure, from Thai food to Thai bodywork to the Buddhist traditions that are just such steeped in loving kindness. It's really a joyful place. So when we actually play, we have fun, and it's a really joyous journey when we go to Thailand. I've taken people to Peru maybe three or 4 times. Peru is a different type of journey. You're high in the Andes Mountains. You have the Quero shamanic traditions there, but you also have this whole sacred valley, which is just lined with Incan ruins. And the energy in some of these power places is so palpable. When I take people there, they really get rooted in some of these practices and have a different type of spiritual journey that develops there. I've taken people to Bali. Bali to me is like a beautiful blend, I think, of India and Thailand. You have the spirituality from India, but then you have this joy and compassion from Thailand, and it's really a beautiful blend. So I've taken people to those places. Where else have I? Glastonbury, which is the world's heart chakra. I've taken people there with me and just fell in love with the English countryside. In fact, I've feel called to live there. I don't know that will happen in this lifetime, but I know at some point I need to be a steward of that sacred place. I probably was in another life, but I feel that I need to again. And I right now am booking a retreat, a healing retreat in Egypt, which will take us down the Nile. We'll start between the paws of the Sphinx for an initiation, and we'll end after this journey down the Nile to various temples through Luxor and Karnak and Philae. We'll come back to Cairo and be inside the Great Pyramid for a 2-hour private healing event. So I'm booking people for that now for October of 2025. And that Egypt is maybe one of the penultimate destinations for, I think, spiritual healing. For me, when I went there, it was a huge remembrance journey and connecting with people that I had known in these past lives there in Egypt, finding them now in this life, and just how impactful that was. Egypt to me has many mysteries. And I have a documentary series called The Earth Chakras on my YouTube channel where I go through some of these power places and you can see and learn about them a little bit more.
And what is the name of that channel?
On my YouTube channel, which is, you can either YouTube my name or put in T. Ulshafer, my first initial last name, I think, is the channel name. But you'll find the Earth Chakras documentary series there. And I have 1 through 5 completed. I just finished the Egypt one last month.
Wonderful. What do you do on Tuesdays?
You know what? I guess people are always telling me you're so busy. And I go, really? I think when I'm inspired and I love something, it's, first of all, it's not work. It's just something that I do because I love to do it. And I just managed to get a lot done. I don't know. I'm a Gemini. I work both worlds. I figure it out.
I agree with you. If you love what you do, then you don't work a single day. Do you consider yourself a modern day shaman?
So I stopped using the word shaman, and I started because of some work that I do and have done since 2015 with a woman named Solara. I use the word true one. Similar, I think, to how I felt about Reiki. I as a writer, I think you understand language and the energy behind words sometimes can be limiting to the truth of the totality of something. And so I love shamanic practices. I would never call myself, though, a modern day shaman. I call myself a true one.
Beautiful. My guest, my dear friend, Reverend Dr. Tracey Ulshafer. We've been talking about her latest book, The Accidental Yogini, Padma. Tracey, please share with our listeners where they can get all of your books and find out more about your wonderful work.
My website is oneyogacenter.net, and that's ONE, yogacenter.net. I also have TraceyUlshafer.com as a website that forwards to the same thing. So you can find me and all of my work and my retreats there. And all of the books are available on Amazon in paperback and some of them in Kindle.
And please again share about the book signing on the 22nd of December for those of us in the New York, New Jersey area.
Yeah, come on out to Black Forest Acres in Hamilton Square on Sunday, December 22nd. I'll be there between 12 and 2, although if people keep coming, I'll stay longer. I think they're open till 4 on Sunday. They are a holistic grocery store, and they offer many beautiful supplements and different things. So I will be there with books, or you can bring your books and I'll sign them either way.
Tracey, it was wonderful to reconnect with you today and share all of these wonderful stories that you have and all the experiences that you've had and the message, most importantly, the message that you have for our world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.